You know, every time I make one of these, I always think to myself, this is going to be the one where it's going to be super quick, because there's not really much to say about the soul leveling crossover, especially when it comes to the units, because none of the units are, in my opinion, super complex or super in-depth. They're all pretty straightforward with the way how you want to use them. So in this video today, we'll be ranking all of the soul leveling units in Grand Summoners from worst to best. Of course, if you guys have seen any of the other ranking videos, you already know how this goes, and I've definitely came around to some of these characters, but without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's talk about Choi. Now, Choi is a character that I'm just gonna be completely honest about. I really was like, it is what it is. Whenever I first saw her, I felt like her barrier was kind of overall weak. I felt like that she wasn't really gonna be great in every piece of content that I would want to use her in, considering that she does do DR for your team, but the DR is relatively low unless you're fighting a dark boss. After looking over this kit and also seeing some gameplay with her come out, it's like, well, she's actually not too bad at all. If you're using this character on Mono Light with someone like Saitama on your team, technically what you can do is just use the true art and the super art and completely avoid the art at all costs. The reason being is because, well, the art's going to apply a barrier, and that barrier is going to overwrite Hero Saitama's barrier. Now, Hero Saitama's barrier is actually the same as Choi's barrier, but if you don't want any conflicting stuff happening there, just don't even use the art. Unless you're fighting a dark boss, then I think it's actually worth using the art. To me, it's always goes back to this type of character. I feel like every single crossover has it. A flex unit, right? This is clearly a flex character where you put her on the team whenever you need the stuff that she's providing. If you need the dark res, then throw her on the team. If you already have a lot of barriers and stuff and already have some arts generators on the team, but just want a bit more arts and a bit more damage, you can throw Choi on the team, and now you're getting that art gauge when your allies are under a barrier, and you're getting a massive 250% damage buff. Of course, don't expect Choi to like carry the team necessarily in damage or anything, but I do believe that in certain events, like for example, any dark event that is extremely hard, she might be the one that carries your team. Not to mention she has a 5-star defense slot, so that makes your team even tankier. And with all that being said, I'm gonna put Choi at number 3 in this list, which you guys can probably already guess who number 4 is. It's Choi. I don't want this to come off as I don't like Choi, because I think Choi is a great character. Problem is that Choi is kind of more of a damage support character. I would argue magic equip support than anything. One thing that I talked about was that using him alongside a light character that had Lux Fina could be very strong, since Lux Fina gives you a 100% status res as soon as you use it for like 5 to 8 seconds or something like that. And being able to lower the cooldown of Lux Fina and giving your team pretty much like 100% stat res 24/7 is extremely powerful. The problem is that I wish Choi could do that on his own and not have to rely on another unit, and not only just another unit, an entirely different element as well. Considering the way how the other parts of his kit are, he wants to be on a minor fire team, right? Especially with that true art lowering the enemy's fire res. Outside of just the random gimmicky stuff that he could do with equips, I feel like there might be a world where Choi is used in a team comp specifically to help with damage mitigation, because he does have that attack reduction, physical damage reduction, and evasion rate down on the art. But the main two things we're looking at here are the attack and physical damage reduction. Reducing attack and physical damage by 30% isn't the same as, like, of course, having 40% DR and stuff, but it still is a form, I guess you could say, of damage reduction. But the problem is just when will that come up? When is it going to be like, okay, I need Choi to lower the attack and physical damage, opposed to, oh, let me just throw on another 5-star defense equip, or let me just use this character over Choi, right? As time goes on and we just get more and more OP magic equips, we might see something come out eventually where Choi is insane with a certain equip and the synergy is ridiculous. The magic equipment is really going to make him who he is, more so than just his kit alone. And on that same kind of note here, let's actually talk about Jinwoo. Jinwoo is arguably the one character that I have the most, how do I want to put this, internal conflict with, I guess you would say. Very mixed feelings with this character. If you look at Jinwoo at face value, he's a unit that deals quite a bit of damage, especially with his super art. The fact that it is dynamic, so it scales his damage based on how low the enemy's HP is. It's very good. Not to mention he has the attack ups in his passive. With the ratio passive, it's just incredible. And then he does also Arch Gen for dark allies, which is kind of my point of contention. This true art is not bad. especially for Dark Allies. You get tons of art gauge. If you're above 80% HP, you get even more art gauge. The fact that it only benefits Dark Allies is so weird to me. I know it makes sense for him to be able to support Dark Allies, at least in terms of his lore. I've had so many raging teens tell me this over the last few weeks, and they're not understanding what I'm saying whenever I say that this overall is a worse design for him than if they just made him a support character for everyone. A lot of you guys that are getting into this game for solo leveling are brand new players, and you guys cannot make use of this true art. The whole thing I'm saying is that I think it would have been cool if it just said increase allies arts by 4 per second, and if above 80% HP, dark allies get an additional 2 arts. That would have been the simplest way to solve it. So that way new players can still utilize Jinwoo's arts, and on top of the fact that dark allies are still getting buffed. That would have been the best way to meet in the middle with this type of unit. But the fact that this unit doesn't support everyone is a big issue, especially for you guys that are newer. If you're a vet, this doesn't matter at all, by the way. I need to clarify this because some people think that I'm even talking to the vets whenever I say this. No, I'm specifically looking at this unit from a new player's point of view and how good they would be for them. Arguably, one of the worst characters to get as a brand new player because he's not doing anything for you apart from damage. And surprise, surprise, 90% of the cast can do some kind of damage. Outside of Mono Dark, he's just a big damage dealer, kind of a beat stick, if you will. And as a brand new player, you really don't need that. However, I do think whenever you have him on Mono Dark and you're using him with other Dark Allies or you're using him with the other character from this crossover, Igris, he's insanely strong. And with that being said, he could be used in a multitude of situations. Now, don't think he can nuke the raid because he cannot nuke the raid unless the boss is at half HP already. But outside of that, you know, he can be used pretty much anywhere. He's going to be a great arch center. He's going to be able to deal tons of damage. Not to mention he's able to constantly lower the enemy's physical res, which could be what you're looking for depending on the team comp that you're using. So in my personal opinion, I know I put Choi as number 4 and Cha as 3. I would argue that Jinwoo is actually the 3rd best unit from this crossover and Cha's actually a bit above him if we're looking at this from a new player's point of view, since a new player is going to be able to get more mileage out of Cha than someone like Jinwoo. However, if we're considering the fact that he's able to be used with other dark characters, he is easily the 2nd best character from this crossover, only beaten by Igris. Kind of all over the place right now. A lot of people have been testing him out, using him in a bunch of different situations, kind of seeing how crazy he is with the 300 art gauge, not to mention the big damage buffs and attack buffs and all that type of stuff. Igris is fantastic. One thing that Igris is really cool about is the fact that you can put him on the team and instantly he is art shitting for the team. He doesn't have to use his art, he doesn't have to use his true art, super art, nothing like that. Instantly, he gives everybody on the team 4 arts per second. Igris is able to be used pretty much on any team because of this. You can use him with dark characters, light characters, fire, water. It doesn't really matter. No matter what, if you are brand new or if you're someone who's been playing the game forever, you put Igris on your team, he's going to be providing some kind of value. Being able to focus on a singular character that gives them 300 art gauge to kind of jumpstart them into whatever is very powerful as well. Let's not forget the massive attack buff he's able to apply to the leader and himself while also reducing the enemy's physical res by a ton. But just like everything that you may love, there's always some kind of issue, something that you notice and you have to be okay with. And for Igris, that is the fact that he can only target one character with his buffs, which is of course the leader, and the fact that he really has to be used alongside other ratio characters. Of course, you can get a lot of mileage out of Igris just by throwing him on the team and using him with whoever, without even really thinking about who's getting his attack buff and all that. But if you use him alongside a ratio character, like Jinwoo for an example, Saido Hajime, Stark, Okarun, it doesn't matter, just whoever, right? This is where his damage buffing and his attack ups and all that are very, very potent. Being able to use one of these characters alongside Igris buffs up their damage astronomically. However, you throw a unit like Summer Miyu on the team and you get Igris to buff up her, she's not really benefiting from the additional attack. She doesn't have any kind of ratio passive in her kit, and after 100% attack, well, the attack buffing kind of becomes a bit redundant. The whole reason why the ratio passive is so good is because you're able to utilize attack ups past 100% and still get a sizable damage buff. Before the ratio passive, this was a very big issue, but now since the ratio passive is in the game, we don't have to worry about this anymore, because if a unit has it, well, you're good. You know what I mean? Even with all this being said, Igris is still the best character from this crossover. He does have some issues, but doesn't necessarily make him a bad unit. And I would actually say we should give Next Ninja a round of applause. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, this is the best they have ever done at making a crossover character extremely strong without making them broken. They clearly have some weaknesses. They're not useful in every single situation, but they're still really good when you need them. They talked about this before, that the GS characters were going to be the really broken units, which is fine, but now we get a lot of crossover characters that are kind of just afterthoughts, which I know that's not actually how they go about making them, but that's how it kind of feels as someone who is playing the game. You see your favorite character come out and you're like, well, they kind of suck. Igris has a lot of different uses. He has a clear weakness, but when he's good, my God, is he freaking good. So huge props to GS Dev Team for doing that. This is all the people are asking for when it comes to future crossover units. Make a character that is good, but not broken. You guys can do it. You proved you could do it with this one here. Oh, I guess one other thing I should mention about Igris before we actually end this tier list video, don't try to solo tank with this guy. He cannot do that, unfortunately. He still needs a taunt tank or a barrier tank or something like that to be around him to really keep the team alive. He cannot keep the team alive by himself, unfortunately. Thank you all so much for hanging out. Tell me down below what your list is for solo leveling. I feel like this crossover is going to be a crossover where a lot of the lists are going to be a bit different depending on how you view the game and what you value in a character. So I'd love to see all your guys' lists down below in the comment section. Of course, if you enjoyed it, please make sure you give it a like or a dislike if you didn't. If you did enjoy it though, I highly recommend check out this video popping on my screen right now. It's a great piece of content. If you click on it, I'll meet you over there. But before you do, don't forget to drink water.